Welcome to the Plant-Centered and Thriving Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kitchens. Welcome to the show, Plant-Centered listener. My name is Ashley and I'm your host and your interviewer today. We have a very special guest named Zana, and we cover a topic that I don't think we have covered yet on this show. So I'm really excited to share that with you. Wherever you are today, whatever you're doing, if you've listened to the show before, welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. If this is your first episode with us, thank you so much for being here. We are thrilled that you have tuned in today. I am coming off another weekend of hosting family. One benefit that I've noticed in the past couple weekends with hosting a family is that it kind of invigorates, I guess, NB and I's excitement for the vegan options in this area. We don't eat out very often, maybe once a week. But when family comes into town, they're excited to try new restaurants, and we're excited to showcase how many vegan options there are in the Raleigh-Durham area. So that's been a lot of fun, just going to different restaurants, and not different to us, but different for them, and trying new things. Well, again, we're not trying new things, but you get what I'm saying. I wanted to let you know, and I don't know if I've shared this on the show yet before. I've definitely shared it on some of my social media channels, that I was invited to compete at Mr. America this year. And let me tell you, I am honored beyond belief. I just feel so privileged that this team invited me to be part of their team, which I will explain kind of what that looks like. Of course, I'm also very, very nervous, but I'm also really excited. So Mr. America this year is October 6th through October 8th, and it's in Atlantic City, New Jersey, which I have never been there before. So I'm excited to go up there and compete. So I'm part of a team called Plant Built, and it was started quite a while ago. I don't want to give you too much information because the whole reason I'm telling you this is in preparation for this big competition that's coming up at the beginning of October. I'm going to be interviewing the founder of Plant Built along with several other of my teammates who will be competing there as well. And some of them just have such remarkable stories about going plant-based or going vegan. And not only did they see just incredible health benefits from changing their diet, changing their lifestyle, but also how it's fueling their sport now. So Mr. America, which I had to look this up, Mr. America was originally a bodybuilding contest, and it was first held on July 4th, 1939, so quite a while ago, and it has since morphed into, now there's a variety of sports that Mr. America offers, I guess. So one of them being CrossFit, and that's the team that I was invited to compete with. They also have kettlebell sport, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, and a bunch of other things, and obviously the bodybuilding and the physique competitions as well. So there's quite a few of us on the team. We actually interviewed someone last year to talk about the competition and what that looked like and everything. But this year, since I'm a part of the team, just so gratefully, I'm going to interview several people, and we'll release those episodes kind of leading up to the competition. So keep a lookout for those, because some of these stories, I was just blown away. And then, yeah, I think that's it there. That's what all I was going to tell you there. So really excited for that. Looking forward to that. And like I said, also very nervous. So today's guest, we are actually going to cover the topic of Crohn's disease. And if you're unfamiliar with Crohn's disease, what it is an inflammatory bowel disease that causes this chronic inflammation in the GI tract. So it can extend from your stomach all the way down to your anus. And it is incredibly, just from listening to Zana's story, it can be incredibly debilitating. And you may know this if you have Crohn's, or if you know someone who has Crohn's disease. It affects people differently. And so the story today is just a really remarkable one of how Zana used diet and lifestyle to put herself into remission. And I won't give you too many details because she goes into all the details, but I was just blown away by how she really just went all in with diet and lifestyle, and it made a pretty huge impact on her life. So Zana, she is a recipe developer and a cookbook author. She has a really cool cookbook, by the way, and she started her career as a computer science engineer. But of course, soon after starting her first job, she got very sick. She was eventually diagnosed with Crohn's, which she says was just the cherry on top of all of her health problems that were going on. long story short, because she goes into great detail here, she ends up changing her diet and she's been in remission since 2012. She ended up quitting her job, which she never thought she would do because she really wanted to share this with the world. And she really wants people to know that they are not helpless. And I know with Crohn's disease, there's obviously nutrition is ever changing and there's more and more information coming out about diet and inflammatory bowel diseases. And we go into some of that. We also, I don't think we touched on this, but Dr. Greger, who is a plant-based doctor, he covers this on his website called nutritionfacts.org. If you type in Crohn's disease, he has several videos and blog posts that really go into more detail about diet and how it can impact the inflammation that's going on in your body with Crohn's disease. And of course, like I said, there's also just more research papers coming out, just kind of showcasing the benefit of maybe monitoring your diet with Crohn's. And with Zana, obviously every person is different when it comes to their diet and lifestyle changes and how it impacts their own disease. And so this is Zana's story, which is very personal to her, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. So without further ado, let me jump into my interview with Zana. I hope you enjoy this one and have a good rest of your day. But I want you to tell us, just so the listener is kind of aware of like where you're from, what life is like, where you're living and everything, kind of give us a little background on who you are, because I'm curious to learn as well, to be honest.
So let's start with the geography.
Yes, please remind me.
So I come from Slovenia, which is a really, really tiny country of 2 million people, a little over 2 million people. It's next to Italy in Europe, of course. And it's actually shaped like a chicken. You can look it up if you don't believe me. On the map, it looks like a chicken, so it's really funny. Everyone is always laughing when I tell them that.
Sure.
And I'm currently living in the capital of Slovenia, which is Ljubljana. And I've been living here ever since I came here to study. I didn't study anything related to food or cooking or anything. I'm actually a computer science engineer. I used to be a programmer, a software developer. That's what I was actually working on for 10 years.
Wow.
And then when I started to get sick and started to research my diet and everything, that's when I actually left my job.
Wow.
Because I realized how important this is, and if I could help myself, what could I do for everyone else? So
Yeah. Wow. And we're going to unpack all of that today, like your entire journey of getting that diagnosis and kind of what you did from there. All right, so Zana, take us back prior to 2012 and kind of give us an idea of what life was like sort of leading up to that diagnosis and then kind of your journey after that.
So yeah, 2012 was actually just when I got my first job, and it was a stressful period of my life because I was starting out as a young software developer. I was the only woman in my office, my department when I started working, and learning new things and everything. And I was just like stressed. Like stress is a big part of what I think got me into my health problems.
Yeah.
And also there was diet because, as I told you, I had a lot of health issues around that time. I had a high blood pressure, I had constipation, I was tired. I wasn't actually aware that food was like the big part of that.
Yep.
But I realized it when I got my Crohn's disease diagnosis because I ran into a doctor who told me my diet was to blame. And I was having a pretty standard diet for someone in Slovenia.
Yeah.
I ate a lot of meat, a lot of dairy, fish. Like at every meal there had to be some meat or at least some dairy, because otherwise you would die, you know.
Of course, yes, can't live without it.
Yeah. So it was a very confusing time for me because I was like, everything I knew growing up was like shifting.
Yeah.
And I was really, really confused, and I knew I had to do something. I knew I had to change my life.
Yep.
So that is why when it got to the Crohn's disease diagnosis, I decided to research my diet and to learn about it.
Wow. So when the doctor told you that a lot of your issues were diet related, what was your initial reaction to that? Because first of all, I don't feel like doctors usually say stuff like that.
He said it completely off the record, for starters.
Yes.
And he didn't even get into details, and I was like, what is going on here? Because, you know, I Googled my disease, and it was like, it's incurable, it's autoimmune, you can do nothing about it. And I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And what are you talking about? My diet is great, you know, it's just like they taught us in school.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so it was really confusing, and we didn't have access to a registered dietitian at the time, or anyone who would know anything about plant-based eating.
Yep.
So I just had to look it up myself, and it was a scary time because I actually was afraid that I might do something wrong.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I knew I had to do something because I didn't want to live like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I imagine you weren't feeling well, and it's like you're probably like, I'll do anything just to kind of figure out what's going to happen. How did you end up arriving at the diagnosis, or how did you get the diagnosis of Crohn's? Like, could you tell like just something wasn't right with your GI system, or what was that like?
So in the months leading up to my first flare-up, or actually I had flare-ups before, but I wasn't able to locate them or know what's going on. So I had a few misdiagnoses early in my when I was a teenager already. But then the last time I got cramps in my abdominal area, and I went to an ER, and that's where they drew some blood, they did a blood work, and they saw like my white blood cell count was really high, and then they started to look into my abdomen with an ultrasound, and later with the colonoscopy and everything. So that was the first time I actually got the real diagnosis because they really looked into it, as opposed to before I had symptoms, but I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, yeah. So then you get that diagnosis. This doctor ends up telling you that, hey, something going on here is probably diet related. Then kind of what was your next step after that?
I dived right in. I was like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I was willing to try anything. Just like you said, when you're sick, you want to try everything.
Yeah.
And I had nothing to lose because I felt so miserable. I was like, I just finished my college. I got my first job, and it was supposed to be great, but I was so unhappy because I was sick.
Yeah.
And I was really, really like, I wanted to change that, and I was prepared to do anything. It was challenging for me because I'm such a technical person. I need evidence. Mm-hmm. I'm not into wishful thinking or stuff like that. I need to see things on paper. I need to understand things. So that's why I started looking things up and reading books and like anything I could get my hands on. And that's also why I decided to take the T. Colin Campbell Nutrition certification, because I needed like someone to tell me what you found online has studies to back it up, you know?
Yep.
Because you can find anything online, like anything.
Yes, you can.
You can find a study proving anything you want.
Yep, it's true.
Because there are people who founded the study to get it to say what they want, you know? Mm-hmm. So it was a really, really interesting to start getting into it, researching diet, because it's such a interesting field. Yeah.
Oh, it really is. So which I've heard a lot of great things, and I know there's even probably some listeners listening today who have taken that course as well, the T. Colin Campbell course, and I've heard really great things about it. Was that one of the first resources that you really dove into that kind of opened your eyes to plant-based eating, or how did you even arrive at plant-based eating? Because it could have been anything.
Well, okay, I forgot to tell you that.
Yep.
I actually Googled it up, like people who have Crohn's disease, and I found stories of people who said they are in remission for a very long time and that they got things under control. And there was a common denominator to those people. The majority of them were mentioning the plant-based diet. And that's how I got the idea. The doctor at the hospital actually mentioned like processed meat and stuff, because that was around the years that processed meat got declared as carcinogens, like right around that 2012. So yeah, he mentioned that, and then I went like online searching for people with similar problems, and they were all talking about a plant-based diet, and then I was like, let's see what is a plant-based diet.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that brings up a really good point of, one, you were open-minded to like looking at all of the evidence that was out there. And I think it's so helpful too when you are diagnosed with something or you feel maybe really isolated or alone on your journey, to find other people who are going through something similar, to maybe see what they're doing, what's working for them, and in a way, I mean, kind of experiment on yourself to see what's going to work best for you. And it doesn't mean that what one person's doing is going to work perfectly for you, but I think it is. It's really helpful to find other people, what they're talking about, and see if you can apply some of those things to you.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's such a great way to like inspire people. I know when I'm telling my story, I know I can inspire someone else. They don't have to do it like completely the same as I do, but it's a great way to start out, to see that it's possible to like to get because you feel so helpless. You feel like you can't do anything, and when you see you can actually do something, it's really so great. So it was actually quite funny that the T. Colin Campbell program was the last thing I did, because that was when I wanted to share what I learned with others, and I wanted to check like if I'm on the right track, you know?
Yeah.
Because I was following people like Dr. Greger and Dr. McDougall and T. Colin Campbell and anyone I could find online talking about a plant-based diet. And I tried many different varieties of a plant-based diet. And it took me a long time to realize what's working and what's not, at least for me, because you can find like so many different varieties of a plant-based diet. And I really wanted to see what the science says, what's the thing that most people agree on, and what can I share with others. And because I don't like to talk about things I don't know much about.
Right. Yep.
And that was actually why I looked you up. That is why I found you, because I like to work with registered dietitians who know how to explain to people why certain foods are good for them, why certain eating habits are good or better than others. And I like to provide the tasty recipes which no one can resist. So
it's true. If you can make a plant-based tasty recipe, then that is a win. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think it's a must-have, because at least for me, I was such a foodie before I went plant-based, and I was actually making fun of vegans. I really didn't. It was karma, you know.
Yep.
I was awful, and then when I Mike the vegan, I don't know if you know him, he has like a cute saying. He says, when I took my meat goggles off, I could see clearly now.
Yep.
And it's so many things changed for me, like really. But yeah, I was a foodie, and I needed I needed tasty food, even if I went plant-based. So I think it's really important to find how do you say, something that works for you. Like, as I mentioned, there are so many different ways to be plant-based, and I know I have to be healthy and also feel good and feel like I'm not missing out and enjoy my food. And yeah, I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, it is. And that enjoying your food piece is very vital, because it's like, well, who wants to live the rest of life eating in a way that is not tasty or is not enjoyable? So I think that's a great point. And Zana, I appreciate you talking about how it took you a little while to go plant-based. Like, it wasn't just this, like, you snap your fingers and overnight, it's like you're eating this perfectly planned plant-based diet. Because I think what a lot of people don't realize is it does take time, and you kind of have to, again, figure out what is best for you, because there are so many different ways to do plant-based, and there are all sorts of lengths of time that you can go to become plant-based. I mean, personally, it took me about 3 years to really figure it out, like, okay, what's going to work for me? And once I figured it out, I was like, oh, this is easy, but it took a while. And I saw something recently on social media that said people who make things look easy, like let's say you and I eating plant-based, for example, since we've been doing it for a while now, they started somewhere, and in the beginning, it probably wasn't that easy. So I think that's always just a good reminder.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And that's actually why I started to share what I learned to make that process a bit easier for other people. They still have to do their work and their time for their body to adjust and everything, but at least I hope I will save them some of the errors I made, because I actually did try to go plant-based overnight, and I didn't know how to make it work. I was very tired and hungry all the time when I started, because I didn't know how to make balanced meals. I didn't know how much I have to eat. And at some point, I was afraid that my teeth were going to fall out because I heard somewhere I'm not getting my calcium. And I was running to the store getting some dairy, because I was like, oh my God, what am I doing to myself? So yeah, it took a lot of time to understand things and to make meals that satisfied all my needs and desires, and not just celery juices or smoothies all the time. But fortunately, even though I started out not really great, my digestion got a lot better, and that is why I decided to stick with this, even though I was hungry all the time and tired. And then when I started to figure things out, I was like, I'm so happy I stuck with this, because in the beginning so many people give up because it's not working for them, and I understand that, because it's really not that easy. Well, it is once you figure it out, but
figuring out is the hard part, especially when you're eating meat and dairy for almost every meal and you can't imagine life without it. It's like, how am I going to go from step 0 to 1 and then eventually get to 100? It almost seems impossible, but those steps will get you there eventually. So what was it like then? What kind of changes in your body did you notice the more plant-based you became? What kind of symptoms maybe weren't as profound, or how did you start noticing that difference to be like, oh, okay, these people online, my doctor maybe too, is right. There is something to this.
So yeah, the first thing was my digestion. It started working again, because it wasn't working before. So that was great. That was new. And the other important thing I noticed was that I wasn't sleepy after my meals. That was something that was wow. And it got me thinking, why are we eating foods that make us sleepy if we are eating to get energy?
Right.
It was such a revelation for me, because I used to be so tired after every meal. I had to have coffee and go lay down and all that things. So that was one of the first things I really noticed.
Yeah.
And later it was more energy. I felt more energized, and even more happy from time to time, because I was like healthy again, you know.
Yep.
So yeah, that was nice.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing how something as, I'm going to put like quotes around simple as constipation, for example, how when, like you said, your bowels actually start working again, how happy that can actually make you, like going to the bathroom regularly, effortlessly versus having issues before. I mean, trust me, I walk out of the bathroom sometimes with a huge smile on my face because I know that this experience now is not the same, 10, 15 years ago. And so I can completely relate to that.
That's so cute. I also can relate. I can smile every time like I'm going to the bathroom.
Yep.
I'm so happy.
Right.
And it's so weird to me that it was we normalize having constipation. Like,
yep.
I thought it was normal. Everyone had it. Like,
yeah.
It's crazy.
No, it really is. I know. The more I think about it, I'm like, okay, we eat, let's say, approximately 3 times a day. Why do we not go number 2 3 times a day? Like, I don't know. It's just like it doesn't quite add up. But that's kind of more of the norm than what I feel like we have normalized, which is like going 3 times a week. Okay, Zana, I'm curious too, like flare-up wise, like how has that been since you started going plant-based? Like what have you noticed maybe in differences there?
So I hadn't had any flare-ups since 2012, like since my diagnosis. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's been more than 10 years now, and I'm so incredibly grateful. I actually had a colonoscopy a few months after I got my initial diagnosis, and I already went plant-based like overnight at that time.
Yeah.
And when they saw my bowels, the GI doctor was like, where did all the trauma go? Like there were no inflammation, no scarring or anything. Like everything healed up so quickly. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And ever since I was like, I had no symptoms. Every now and then I like felt especially when stress builds up, I can feel it getting close, not like anything serious, but then I take time off, I stop working, I take a day off, and I'm really like conscious about my body and what it needs, and giving it the nutrition and the stress relief it needs. So I think that's how I managed to stay in my remission for more than 10 years. Yeah.
Wow, that is incredible. I was not expecting you to say that, which is why I'm floored. Well, so do you still go back to the doctor to get like checkups, or do they monitor anything? Or are you kind of like good to go, don't need to be going all the time?
Yeah, I was like, what now? I asked them, what now? Yeah, and they were like, oh, don't worry, it will come back. And I was like, okay. So they didn't give me any medication, and they didn't say when I should come back. They said I should come back when the problems start again. But I didn't have any problems, and all my regular checkups, like regular doctor appointments, the blood work was fine, everything was fine. They just see that I have, there is my Crohn's diagnosis mentioned in my history, and they're like, oh, you have Crohn's, and I'm like, yeah. And that's it. Yeah. I'm not even arguing anymore.
Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. So like I'm curious how people react when they hear your story, because I feel like with autoimmune issues, there's maybe some like skepticism, like, well, are you sure? Or I'm just kind of curious how people react when you tell them this incredible story.
Yeah, actually, luckily, I didn't get to meet a lot of people struggling with Crohn's disease. And but everyone else, like, everyone has something, you know? Everyone is struggling with something health-related, and that is why they relate to me very quickly, and they, like, see options for them as well. Like, even if it's not the same disease, they get it, like, and they feel very, very inspired. And I'm so happy, like, to tell them my story. I never give out medical advice or anything because I'm not a professional, but I lead with example, and I'm like really, really happy when I can inspire people.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes that's the most powerful form of inspiration, is to be able to share your story. And when someone else hears something like that, it's hard to be like, to deny it, or because especially when you can like see the enthusiasm on your face and you can tell that you just feel so much better than you did 11, 12, 13 years ago. There's just nothing like a story like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you have to be open for a story like that. And usually people who have issues, well, some of them are open and some of them are just like, I don't know, maybe they think I'm making this up or something.
Yeah, yep.
I don't know. But I can't help everyone, you know. You just have to accept that some people are like ready to be inspired, have an open mind, and I'm doing the best I can to inspire them.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. If someone's closed off, like there's really nothing you can do to help them. Someone explained that really well somewhere, where they were like, you know, if you can't see what's going on in my life, then I basically can't help you. Like, this has transformed my life for the better, and it's okay. Like, you maybe will eventually, like even going plant-based, you know, it's like, I don't know about that. I don't know if it's really that great for the environment or the animals or for my health. But once you're ready to receive that information, like you said, once the meat goggles come off, it's like, wow, it's a whole new world. So Zana, for someone who's thinking about going plant-based, or maybe they're in, you know, where you were many years ago, where they couldn't imagine life without meat or dairy or fish or anything like that at their meals, what's some of the advice that you would share with them?
So my first advice always is know why you are doing this. Like, know your why, because if your why is very important to you, then you will make an effort. Mm-hmm. Because if it's just something you want, like, just because you're bored or something, it's not, you don't have enough motivation to like really try, you know.
Yep.
And many people say that you can make anything plant-based, and that's true, but I usually advise people not to do that in the beginning, because I remember when I went plant-based and I was like trying to make the same foods I was used to before plant-based, I was so disappointed. I remember crying. I was like, this is what I have to eat now. Yep. It wasn't even that bad, you know, but it was not the same as the old foods. And that is why my advice is to try new things, to try new foods, because there are so many foods out there you haven't tried like ever, and they are so good and so delicious, and they can remind you of the foods you know, but don't try to replicate them like to a T. You can do that later on when your taste buds change, because your taste will change.
Yes.
And then when you come back and you replicate your favorite food, you will be like, whoa, this is even better. You know?
Yes. I love that, because that is so true. And I think that's such great advice, because when you go plant-based, I feel like it opens up your world to so many foods that maybe you haven't tried, or so many meals that you have never created. And so to kind of embark on that journey to try new things and branch out, it's an exciting part of going plant-based. And for you listening, hopefully we're like jazzing you up a little bit, because I'm sure you're like, yes, it's true. And then like you said, when you go back to those foods that maybe you loved growing up and you recreate them, then that, again, you're like, wow, this is, sorry, Mom, so much better than how Mom made it growing up.
Yes, exactly. But if you do it like straight in the beginning, you are usually disappointed. And this is also my advice when you're like introducing plant-based foods to your friends or your family. Don't try to make their favorite dishes in a plant-based version, because they will be like, this is not meat or something like that. Like, you have to start somewhere else.
Yep.
It's better to start somewhere else.
Yes. They're like, you mean this portobello mushroom doesn't taste like a steak to you? Yeah.
How come? It's exactly the same.
Right. Exactly. Yep. So true.
I would just like to invite your followers, the people listening to this podcast, if anyone stayed until the end of this episode, I would be so happy if they looked me up at Plants Over Brands and sent me a DM saying I listened to your podcast. It would mean the world to me.
Yes.
Because this was like my first podcast in English. And
oh my
I
gosh.
was so nervous.
Oh, you did so well. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I was so looking forward to this, and I'm so happy we did this because I get scared off easily when I'm doing things I'm not very good at, like speaking in English. And I'm really, really happy. So yeah, I would like to invite the people listening to this to Plants Over Brands. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, even TikTok, and I share new recipes every week. I also have a cookbook, which is very, very popular in my country, and it's actually changing the way the people in my country eat. It's like so amazing to see the whole families enjoying plant-based food.
Wow.
And this is why I also decided to translate it to English, and it actually came out at the beginning of this year.
What?
So yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's all my favorite foods that I got to know when I started out. It's the foods that got me into plant-based eating and that got me to stay plant-based. It's like all my favorite foods that I made like in the beginning. It's great to get people interested. You know, you have to make really special foods to let them see what's possible, what they can make, and to get them hyped.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, this is what my cookbook is about, and I will tell you more about it if you visit me at my Instagram or Facebook.
Yes, go head over there and give Zana just a quick DM or a message. Let her know that you came from the podcast and that you appreciated her story. So can we get the cookbook in the U.S.?
Yes, and I actually have a free shipping worldwide. Actually, it's a very special cookbook because it's not a book, but it's a collection of cards. Each recipe is on a standalone card. You even get wooden stand that holds your card while you're cooking.
Nice.
And it's like really designed for cooking, you know. It's designed to make people excited about cooking.
Yes.
So I think it's great because then when people cook, you know, and they send me photos, other people see that and they get inspired and it spreads like crazy.
Yes, it really does. Yeah, I agree. Well, we'll include that link in the show notes. That way, if you want to purchase Zana's book, you can do that really, really easily. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your journey and everything. I really appreciate you. And I'm so glad that we connected on social media and that you were able to come on the podcast. I mean, you were being vulnerable, so I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much for listening today. It would mean so much to us if you would like and subscribe to this podcast and also leave us a review. That means so, so much to us. So thank you so much for listening. And again, Zana, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ashley.
Until next time, keep thriving.